perk your ears up. Make sure if I missed any questions, you will ask the questions in the question and answer session. And let us go straight into it. Ladies, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to be on this panel. I think it's extremely important that we do reach out and we do share our experiences, not only with the audience here, but with the audience that is viewing. And of course, afterwards, people will be able to view this panel discussion after. So I'm sure it will spur a lot of questions. And at the end of this, people will not ask, well, why should we join APIT? We will be telling them the reasons for it. All right, so in the initial phase, I am going to actually ask you the same question to you individually, so you'll be able to share your experiences, and then we'll move into some team questions. All right, so let me start with Engineer Melissa. Being mechanical, of course, you know the bias is there. Why did you choose engineering?
So, let me say goodnight, everyone. So I would have chosen engineering because as a child, my dad actually worked in the petrochemical sector in the 1990s. Ooh. Now, he is a retiree now. He made over 40 years in the sector. And, you know, where I live in the rural area, you weren't able to see those things. So he would take us drives at the Point Jesus Industrial Estate. And it was so fascinating to see all these lighted exchangers, steam turbines, and things like that. And the more you get interested in all these things, it just sparked my attention. And then fast forward on to secondary school, I would have been more tuned to the science subjects. And you know, when the choice came, you know, when I was choosing my field to go to UE, you know, I told my parents, I said, you know, I think engineering is it. And my dad working in the sector knew that even at that point in time, it wasn't really female dominated. It wasn't a choice of, you really think you should do this? It wasn't. It's like, this is what you're going to do? No problem. We'll support you. And I think the rest was history, and I have absolutely no regrets.
Thank you very much. That's excellent. Engineer Tasha, why did you choose engineering? Now, you started off pretty early, eh? CXC level.
Right, and I still could say I didn't choose engineering. From secondary school, what I really wanted to be was an architect. I love to draw, and that's why I ended up doing the technical subjects, technical drawing, building technology, electronics, even dabbled in woodwork for a bit. But after I had gone to technical college and I had graduated, I started to look at architecture, the cost and everything associated with it, and it wasn't an option for me at the time. So I needed to just find an alternative. And at the time I was a teacher, I was still looking around for an alternative because to me I hadn't found exactly what it is I wanted to do. So I went to a university fair and I came across the booth for the University of the West Indies. There was the engineering department had a booth, and there were these brochures on the various types of engineering. So I looked at the brochures, I read about the different disciplines, and civil engineering just seemed the closest discipline to my skills as a technician. So I just said, okay, that's it. And I went on to do civil engineering, and it actually was the closest discipline to my skills. I was actually able, especially when it came to design. The maths were a bit hard, but when it came to design and being able to tear apart a building and look at it in different ways, that is a skill that I had from a technician. And so the transition wasn't that difficult. And that's how I came to do engineering.
You're quite fortunate that you found a niche that you fitted into quite nicely,
Yes.
and you excelled in.
I was fortunate that I went to that fair at that time because I came from a small island, St. Lucia, yes. And in all honesty, I knew nothing about chemical engineering, mechanical, because we're not in that industry. It's more of the built environment. And I hardly knew anything about engineering. When I took my subjects at CXC, I did not understand the relationship with physics, So that is actually why I ended up doing technical drawing, because I simply just did not know, and there was nobody to advise me any differently.
Yeah. I think you've done well. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Definitely.
Engineer Sanya
Oh
Matura.
boy. So I think I always knew that I wanted to be an engineer, even though I didn't know what it was, which is very strange because not that old, but at the time growing up in high school, the only awareness that we had about being an engineer was the person that drove the train, because that's what you saw on TV.
Correct.
Like, so everybody asked me, so what, are you going to be an engineer? So you're going to drive the train, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'll be in front. Don't worry about it. I'll be in front. But I knew I had a curious mind, a very analytical mind, and I knew that I wanted to get into engineering. And I just, a little bit biased, but I pushed for electrical and computer engineering because that was at the top level in UE. A little bit biased, but because I know I have a fellow electrical on the side of me. But the strange thing is that I'm no longer in that electrical field right now, and I've transitioned into the mechanical. So even though, and it's even more niche because I've gone into lubrication engineering, which is a field and a subject that I didn't know existed. I did not know that that existed back at the time that I started studying for my engineering degree. So one of the key things that I want to make sure that I advise the audience is that one of the things that you can do is that engineering provides a baseline for you, and you could totally build on that in every direction that you want to do that. So it definitely provided the baseline for me. Having an engineering background could send you in all different directions. Definitely a lot of different directions. Lubrication has nothing to do with electrical and computer engineering. They are not supposed to mix because they'll blow up or something. But definitely it provides a good background.
So you see what happened there, right? You
a lot of jumping.
electrical. I always think electrical is a little bit snooty, but she came right back down to mechanical.
Oh yeah,
Thank
you
you
know.
very much. Thank you for that. Engineer Tara.
My story is I grew up in a home where, since I know myself, my dad was doing welding and fabricating, doing engineering work, doing steel structures. And I was always fascinated by these designs, these complications, the angle at which they were cutting these metals, and how they were hoisting these steel beams and stuff. So I developed a natural curiosity, and the maths and the sciences helped me to answer those questions. And that evolved into a passion for the sciences. And through high school, ended up doing the sciences. And then when time for university, the question was, what do I do with sciences? The natural fit was engineering. Then the question was, which engineering? So on the day for registration, I asked which is the most difficult one.
Yeah.
And
I stand
they said
corrected.
electrical engineering. And that's how I ended up in engineering. That's how I ended up in electrical engineering. But engineering was a natural fit. I enjoyed it tremendously. I love the physics, I love the chemistry, I even love the biology, which I still have a passion for in medicine and stuff, which I do, a lot of YouTube and trading. But the sciences, yes, and engineering, and that has stayed with me. And now I have my own company, and everything that I have been taught, they are all coming together to help me deliver on what I'm delivering.
What you're delivering. So I hope that the student members in the audience are paying particular attention, because you would have realized the varying backgrounds that these ladies came from and what really encouraged and inspired them. So keep your questions in your head. We'll take them just now. And what we're going to do now is we're going to launch into the second question. And I'm going to start with Engineer Tara right next to me. What do you enjoy most about it? So I'm limiting you at 30 seconds. Go.
engineering has built a foundation for me. The training, that training has allowed me now to apply in all areas of life. So I remember the professor was telling me, he said, you don't have to commit everything to memory. You have to know where to find the information. And now I use that same concept in all aspects of life. And anything I want to do, I find out where the information is, or who has the information, and I go and I get it and I go from there.
Excellent. Engineer Sanya?
I love the fact that it's never the same thing every day. There are always new challenges, there are always new things to learn. We always get different questions there. And I'm not going to say it like this, we have so many problems out there that need to be solved, and it's never the same problem all the time. So it may be a different country, maybe a different setting. So I love the fact that we get to change it up so much and just keep moving and actually solve the problems.
Excellent. I like that answer. Engineer Tasha, what do you enjoy most about engineering?
All right. So in addition to what my two panelists have said, for me, at its very core, engineering is a problem-solving tool. It makes you ask the question, how can we make things more efficient? How can we make things more sustainable? And for me, in particular, civil engineering, forgive my biases, but to me it is the one discipline that allows you to pull from every other discipline. As a civil engineer, you have to have an understanding of every other discipline, and it shows you how you can pull different things together to develop the built environment. Being a civil engineer has allowed me to transition very easily into project management because it draws on these skills. And so for me, engineering, being an engineer, is about solving problems. And that is how we make our world better. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah. Excellent. And of course, being a woman, you naturally solve problems. So that just goes with it, Engineer Melissa.
Yeah, so just to echo the same sentiments of the panel, I'm a bit of an adventurous as well. And, engineering is so dynamic. It's not static, 1 minute you're head down in a computer doing strength and stress and strain calculations, and then the next you're out on the plant going to, get a harness on, climb 100 feet in the air because the motor on the coolant tower fan requires replacement, So it never takes you to the same place. It's always something that gives you more experience and more memories, and that's what I like about engineering. It's always changing and it's fast-paced and it's more like you have to catch up.
Yeah. I hope we're inspiring some younger ones out there as we're speaking.
Definitely.
And also, of course, our international audience. Yes, thank you for viewing. All right, so let's move on to our next question. What is your most important professional or academic achievement?
So, I'll take academic. So, when I had started my MBA, I had a job at that point, and probably about a year into that job, and my master's, I'd lost my job. The contract had ended, and we were sent home. So it wasn't the actual icing on the cake of getting the master's, it was actually the journey that took me there. So even though you're home, you have all the time in the world now, but you don't have no money. How are you going to pay this tuition?
Back to you.
What are you going to do? So mentally that does take a toll on you. So really and truly, I had to take a step back, analyze situation. I really and truly must say, I pulled my Excel sheet. I did my pros and cons. I really, really did, because it was definitely a point in time where I was like, should I withdraw and come back at a time where I can do it financially, but then I have this time, So I really had to weigh the pros and cons of, what sacrifice am I willing to make during this short period to attain this master's for the long-term gain. And I decided to just totally just change around things, cut back a little bit, continue my studies, and really and truly, it was really a short-term sacrifice that really turned into a long-term gain, and that would have been not the masters. It would have been the journey to get there that would have been my most, really, really life-changing experience, because I didn't only have academics to worry about. There was other things, but eventually it all worked out in the end.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Engineer Tasha.
Me again, so soon? Okay, from my bio, okay, you will see that I have several postgraduate and undergraduate degrees, but for me, the most important remains my journey during Teachers Training College, my 2-year journey to become a trained teacher and attaining my professional certificate as a teacher, and I'll tell you why. That training at Teachers Training College has prepared me and equipped me for everything else that came after. It taught me about myself, it taught me about how to learn, how to teach, how to break things down, how to present, how to relate to people, the psychology of people, because you do all these things in Teachers Training College. And the training was not just in technical subjects, it was both at the primary school and secondary school. I was a primary school teacher for a year or two, and also a secondary school teacher. So I had a full breadth of training, and that experience has equipped me throughout my career. It is what I draw from every time that I find myself in a new situation. So out of everything that I've done, it remains to me, it is just a certificate, but it remains to me the most valuable and most telling experience I've had.
Look at that, and that's teaching,
Yes.
That's your basis for everything. That's
Yes.
interesting. All right, Engineer Sania, what is your most important professional or academic achievement?
How much time do we have?
I'm giving you 45 seconds.
I think my most important achievement is just founding my own company, being a female engineer founder. Because I know going to these companies, I remember introducing my company and people will ask me, this is such a great idea. Who is the guy that's responsible for this? Like, no, there's a female involved here. So I think it's just founding my own company and being that driving force for change within the industry, to break the barriers, to get more people aware of what we do, get more women involved. Because I feel like we have so much opportunities for women to be involved and change. Like, there's a reason we still have the same problems. We need to have more women involved. Just saying, just saying. But
Yes.
getting them more involved and being at the forefront of that movement to just empower more women globally.
It's interesting that you say that they ask you, well, who's the guy involved?
Yeah.
So as we go further into the questions, I want you ladies to freely speak as the questions hit you,
Yeah.
Speak your mind, because this is what this is about. It is about our experiences in engineering, and this panel would not have been called if the experiences were the same. In other words, if it was just a smooth ride along the road, it would not be the same. Engineer Taro, what is your most important professional or academic achievement?
My own company. That took a lot of effort.
Yeah.
In a male-dominated space, and especially in a new development industry, renewable energy. I'm still referred to sometimes as Mr. Manic. Yes.
Sorry.
I get emails, like every other week, referring to me as Mr. Manic. That took a lot of effort. Starting the company I had to make a lot of sacrifices. I had to go do a lot of things. As a professional, you are accustomed being treated a particular way. You're accustomed getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
You're accustomed being given, your own laptop or computer or phone or car. And this was a transformation where I had to, stand on my own 2 feet And then I had to do everything. I had to do my marketing plan, I had to do my business plan, I had to do my engineering designs. I had to go and do installs sometimes, hence the wireman degree. So it has been a tough journey. It has been a very rewarding one. I wouldn't do anything any differently. And then within that journey also, you also had to, deal with the male element. It is quite rewarding. And with that, I had to educate myself, hence the reason for the Masters in Management, specializing in SME, because it helped me put my business on a particular track and yielding results.
It's excellent.
Yes.
So one thing spawned a number of things.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You remind me of an events manager. And what happened, they used to plan events, particularly for weddings. And about 9 out of 10 times, the priest didn't show up. So you know what this events manager did? He went and became ordained. So when the priest didn't show up, he still made his money. That was excellent. So it shows how resourceful we can be when we need to be, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah, excellent. Okay, now the first challenging question for you lovely ladies. Let's start. What is one specific challenge that you have faced and how have you overcome it? Now this could be based on your gender as well in the field, yes. So let me start with you again. Sorry, Engineer Tara.
Well, the challenge for me working as a professional is, I think in my field you would have gotten a little extra attention. And you also had to prove yourself a little bit more. You would have asked more specific questions. And as a result, you had to prepare a lot more. You had to brainstorm a lot more in terms of where next or which direction would these questions come from. And that, that actually worked to my advantage because then I would have prepared better. The quality of my work would have been different. And then I would have, where there's a gap in knowledge, I would have improved that gap there.
Excellent.
And that would have caused me to move up professionally.
Excellent. Engineer Sanya.
Oh boy. So when I wrote my first book that was being published called Lubrication Degradation Mechanisms, I wrote the entire book during COVID because I had the time. And I told my publisher, I don't want to publish this because I don't have a qualification that says machinery lubrication. I'm female and I'm young. And people are going to say, where did this little girl from the Caribbean come out from thinking that she could write a book on lubrication degradation mechanisms? So I told my publisher, we're not publishing until I get my certification. And that's the ICML MLE certification, which is the highest level of certification that you can get. You're supposed to go through all the lower levels first, but like a typical trainee, I went straight for the first one, the highest level. I got my certification, becoming the first person in the Caribbean. There are only about 11 or 12 females globally that have that certification. And then I published the book because I didn't want that the book was out there and like she said, it's being questioned. Is a female that wrote it? You know, is it good enough? Has it been validated? Has it been verified? And for those of us within the technical field, you will know that when you write technical papers, as a technical paper writer, you check 2 times. As a female technical paper writer, you check 5 times. And you make sure that everything is right. Because if something is wrong, you will get pulled up for it. Somebody will tell you, you missed a full stop at the end there, you need to change that. But you have an error in your calculation. After going through 15 pages, you have an error in your last calculation. You should have something else in it. So it's something that we face all the time in terms of being able to check and double check. And it helps us to prepare more, definitely. But it's something that I see a lot of women struggle with as well, in that they feel that they need to have the highest level of qualification before they start to do something. And that may not necessarily be true, because you already have the information. You already know what you have to do. You should just go strong and get it done.
Yeah, what you've done there is you've pointed out two things. The people who tend to criticize, quote unquote, to that level, some enjoy doing it.
They do.
And we have people up to this day and age where we talk about equality, diversification, inclusion, and so forth, DEI, where people still haven't grasped that
Yeah.
concept. So they take pride in doing that, you
Oh,
know.
yes.
So we need to break those barriers.
We are.
But there was something else that you mentioned. I'll get back to it. Something else that you mentioned that is of significance. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Engineer Tasha, what is one specific challenge that you faced and how have you overcome it?
Okay. Well, there have been many, but one that comes to mind is after graduating and probably working in the industry for a few years, when I transitioned into the higher level management where there was no one else above you. The decision and the buck stops with you. And the weight of being the one responsible, it really shakes you to your core. You start to doubt, just like my panel say, everything that, even if you know you're qualified, even if you know you can do it, you start to doubt yourself because there is some residual fear. And when I stepped into that environment, in the entire department, there were only 2 females. And I was the manager. The other one was one of my officers. So I was in an environment with a department of over 100 plus people, all male, 2 females. So it was very difficult, and it is one of the experiences that changed my life because you had to break down a lot of barriers. It was for me the first time I would have experienced direct discrimination, not just because of the one in charge, but being a woman in charge. And it took a lot out of me. It sent me to places I probably didn't want to go. But at the end of it, it made me a stronger person. And when I look back at it, although I wouldn't wish for the experience again, I don't regret it because it built on who I am today.
Character building. Yeah. I remember what I was going to mention, and you just mentioned it as well, and it's called imposter syndrome. So when I allow Engineer Melissa to speak, we'll get back to a question on imposter syndrome in a few minutes. So, Engineer Melissa, what is one specific challenge that you faced, and how have you overcome it?
So one of the challenges I would have faced was actually similar to Sanya and Mrs. Malik. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of times when you do your work, just like they said, you have to be perfect. You have to cross all your T's, dot all your I's, make sure your calculations are to the decimal. So, you know, certain times during those meetings and those, you know, discussions, it would always be that my work needs to be fact checked, you know. So, and it continued. And then like I always do, I introspect, I took a step back. But maybe, and I thought to myself, maybe I am not saying it with confidence enough, you know. And usually when a male presents himself or they present their recommendations and findings, it's usually more, you know, aggressive. It's to the point. It's louder. You know, women are by nature a little bit more reserved, a little bit softer. And I think it was up to me not to be convincing, but to be confident in myself, to put forward what it is I wrote there, what it is I calculate there. And you know, obviously during the course of your career, you will always have gaps. That is, you know, that is set. But however, I knew when you have good work, it's been checked by your superior, you are confident in it, I think it's up to you. And that's where the motivation lies, within you, to be confident in yourself, to put forward that recommendation. And I started to practice that, and then I saw the change. The fact checking and the, you know, the parallel reviews kind of, you know, it receded a bit, but it was all out of my doing.
Yes.
It probably would have been confidence in myself to actually not do it as assertive and as aggressive as I should have. So it's a learning for me to take back there.
Oh, that's excellent. So she just basically answered the next question we could have asked, which was how do you handle imposter syndrome and what strategies have helped you build confidence? And just for the audience's info, imposter syndrome is when you doubt your own skills and successes. You feel as though you're not talented or as worthy as others believe. You see? So you want to say anything else or I'm coming back?
Sure. So you could,
Yeah.
So, one of the things that, as a woman, you always, and being a mechanical engineer at that, you kind of feel intimidated, in that industry which has been male dominated over years. So we are now trying to break that barrier. And really and truly, it's all in here. It's really and truly all in here. And once you have that motivation and cognitive ability to know that you are good, that you can do this much and that you can do your best, I think that's where it lies. So, my message really and truly is to have the confidence in yourself to do that, to go out there, because you could be your biggest challenge, you could be your biggest barrier, and out there the opportunities are. It's sitting there waiting for you, and you are your own disadvantage. So that's really your cognitive ability, and it comes with a lot of practices and meditating. Probably speaking to yourself in the mirror, you could do it. I think it's a lot of cognitive intuition that you need to have, in yourself, and confidence in yourself to kind of break that barrier.
It's interesting that there's so much more growth where females are concerned. Engineer Tasha, how do you handle imposter syndrome?
Like she said, it's all in your head. And for me, early on, before I recognized, well, it's really all in my head, I overcompensated. I got multiple degrees, multiple certificates, just like her, went for the highest I could attain. And so now I have a string of letters behind my name. I'm not even sure how relevant they are. But it caused me to overcompensate. But then I realized that I asked myself, at what point have you ever really failed at anything that you are actually good enough? You can do your job, and you have to come to a point where you start to believe in who you are. You have to start to believe in yourself and your abilities. And even now, transitioning from engineering and becoming a construction and having my own practice as a construction and engineering adjudicator, even after I did law, I actually never even saw that field. And when I started to get assignments as an adjudicator, although I had gotten certificates in mediation, dispute resolution, it wasn't specifically construction adjudication, but I believed in myself. I believed that my combined experience would help me do this, even if I didn't have that specific qualification. So I'm only now getting a specific qualification. You see, I still probably have the syndrome because even after I've done mediation, dispute resolution, all of this, I've served on several dispute boards, I've done claims or whatever, I still think I have to do a course in construction adjudication, and I now finish it. So I'm probably still suffering from it a bit, but that just tells you, the one thing that I have ended up doing, when I started it, I didn't have the specific qualification to do it, and I still went into it.
Right.
So have the confidence in who you are. And sometimes I see men sell themselves and they have confidence to do things, even when they have none of the qualifications. And you're sitting there with all of the experience, all of the qualifications, and you're afraid to speak up. And so we have to realize that we deserve to be where we are. We have worked for it, and we should go for it. Yeah?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that actually
That was
leads into
pretty
one of the other networking questions that I have, and a point that came up into my head. I'll hold on that point. Engineer Sanya, how do you handle imposter syndrome? What strategies have helped you build confidence?
I think we have almost built-in imposter syndrome because we have this thing called social media, and people are on it all the time. And we're accustomed to seeing the highlight reel, only the success stories, none of the failures or none of the tears or the extra hours or the late nights. We don't see any of that. We just see the highlight reel and we think that is it. And we think that they got to that position just snap of a finger very easily. But it all comes back, just like you said, believing in yourself and understanding and knowing your worth and your value. I think that's the main thing. Because if you think that you are not worth what you are worth, then you settle for anything else. And you allow people to walk all over you. And that's not how it's supposed to go. Know your value, know your worth, and know what you bring to the table, because you're the only one who could do that. And that's where the confidence comes from. You may not have it on day one, take a little time, but know your worth and know your value, and that will help you with any imposter syndrome. Or just tell the imposters to go that way. That works too.
Yeah, because it's very easy to doubt yourself
Yes.
and lose your own confidence. Yeah. Engineer Tara.
When I started my career, I was very confident and very assertive.
As is expected of electrical engineers, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm biased.
Yes, I was very assertive. I remember going to interviews and they would ask me certain questions. And I would and there's this particular interview that stands out. And one of the interviewer asked me to come and was interrogating me on fiber then. I was in communications, electrical, specializing in communications. And my response was, if you want if you would like me to come and do a presentation for him on the technologies, with respect to fiber. And that killed that conversation on the spot. Next morning I was hired on the spot. 2 different persons they were calling from the same company to hire me in different locations. Over time, clearly, working in the field of engineering, that could cause you to lose your confidence and become less assertive. And that happened to me. And then I started to question, went through a process of having to double check my work and prepare and go the extra mile, and then the perfectionist side kicked in. And it took me some time to get back being confident and being assertive. With that though, that has its side effects, because some people just cannot handle someone being assertive and confident, so you have to know now how to manage that. So in some settings, I would just
More mental stress.
so I have to flex my personality sometimes. But going back to one of the points that was said earlier by the panelists, and I've seen it often too. Men, they are very confident in what they are saying and what they are doing, even if they don't have the
Qualifications
qualifications or the
or
information. They will tell you, they will give you what you want, and they move on. I see women feel the need to, yes, they give it, but have to justify and keep on justifying. I'm still guilty of that sometimes in my work, and that is reflected in when I'm submitting proposals and documents, where I would submit maybe a 20-page document, and someone will submit a 2-page document. And sometimes we open ourselves up to so many questions, and the next proposal will be, oh, okay, that's the cost, that's the value, and they will go. So we have to be careful of how much we open ourselves up to for those things. So being confident and assertive and understanding the environment and the audience also plays a big role.
I think the majority of women are very honest in their output. Not saying anything bad against the males, but you can interpret that how you like. So let me gaslight you a little bit. In these experiences where you've doubted yourselves, have you been working with male or female managers or people you report to, supervisors or so forth? Anyone?
For
When you
me,
doubted yourself,
when I started to doubt myself the most, actually, I'm sorry to say that, ladies, is when I was working with a female manager, engineer, for the first time as my superior. And
Right.
it's actually the point in my, I came from teaching, so I was not timid or thing. I was very assertive, I came from, because it's mostly women who are teachers, still mostly a female-dominated industries. And when I worked for a female engineer, I started to become less assertive, less confident. I can't say the reason why, but when I worked under male engineers, they were more encouraging. They were
supportive.
more supportive.
Got you.
And my mentors have been male from technical college up to now.
Yeah.
The people who have impacted my life are
So
male
remember in the
engineers.
opening salve, I said that some females who've had a good experience, they've had good male mentors and managers. So you're quite fortunate to get that as well. Anyone else? Anyone else? When you started doubting yourself, who you were reporting to?
I was fortunate to have mentors throughout my career. And they are male. And they have provided us support through, irrespective of what the situation is. I was fortunate to have gotten good advice to navigate that.
That's good,
Yes.
mature male mentors.
Yes, not same age,
Yeah.
but 10 plus
Mature.
years
Yes,
different.
usually.
That
Yes.
makes a world of difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Melissa?
Yeah, so I believe that, a mentor is somebody who could directly influence you. And sometimes, you don't choose your mentors, your mentors choose you. It just kind of happens, So I had a boss back at Nutrien, he's an expat, really, really nice guy, very aggressive, I would say, really nice guy. But he was never intimidated with where I wanted to go. It was always, you do the work. We went into a big pre-planning turnaround meeting. I did all the figures, we did the work plans, we literally had a 10-minute conversation before he went in. I'm like, you are going to present this. When we went into the meeting, he's like, and it was our turn to speak and present. He's like, I'm just here for the donuts and the coffee, Mel's gonna do it. So I'm there thinking, I had to take a 5 seconds to kind of, compose myself. And then I was like, in my mind, you just did the figures. You just did the work plan. Say it. Just say what you have to. And, I did crackle a bit, but he gave me the opportunity to become a better speaker, to be able to take my work. He said, this is not my work. This is your work. You present it. So, and if it wasn't for him giving me that confidence and influencing me and trying to break my mental barriers and giving me the opportunities, really and truly, I don't know where I'd be today. He was really a good mentor, and mentors are part and parcel of the reason of why you are who you are and where you are today. So I definitely have him to thank for that.
You know what you've just given to me? You've just given to me, some JDs, they have developed this and developed that. That is what you've just given to me, the definition of the word develop. Because that is what he did as part of his mentorship with you. He developed that aspect of you, you see? Excellent. So you ladies actually answered the question without me even asking it. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go into some group questions now because I'm looking at the time. We'll go on for another 20-25 minutes, then we'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll get back to the questions and answers part of the audience, with the audience, right? So to the viewing, the people who are viewing this panel discussion online, just keep your things coming, keep your questions, and you'll send them through eventually. We'll get to them. Okay, so let me ask you a team question now. What does your leadership style look like, and how do you empower others in the team? Anyone can chime in at any point in time.
Oh boy.
This is a group question. You, when you look at yourself, what is your, for me, my leadership style is empowering. I empower the people who work beneath me to do what they have to do. No, that doesn't come free. I expect a high level of honesty and a high level of output from them. Of course, sometimes they disappoint me, you know, but again, I have the conversations, and I realize as a supervisor, you have to have hard conversations with people sometimes. You have to. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. You know, I have experienced where I have been treated differently because I'm a female supervisor. And of course, you know, I cut out that straight because you're not going to treat me differently because I am a female. If I were a male, you would not even try to think of getting away with something. So I nip those things in the bud, you know. But so my leadership style really is empowering the people who work with me, you know, even cross-functional teams and so you empower them, so you get more productivity from them.
Definitely.
So for me, I learned about situational leadership styles. And that's basically your style is reflected based on the situation that you are in. There are times you have to be authoritative. There are times you have to allow your team to lead. There are times you have to be in a mentoring state, a coaching state. It all depends. So depending upon what you're doing, or transformation, depending on if you're undergoing change and stuff or leading and change initiatives, sometimes you have to determine what style is needed to yield the results that you want and to work with the team to get the end result. So with situational leadership, you look at your team's competency and willingness to do the work. And if they are competent and if they are willing, then you could allow them to lead. You don't have, as a leader, you don't have to, or as a manager, you don't have to be on the forefront all the time if you have a competent team working with you. And like you said, empower them to do what they have to do. And likewise on the other end of the spectrum where you have to take a lead if your team, if you have difficulties with willingness or competency and depending upon what you have to do. So my style is very much, it's flexible and I have the capacity to flex accordingly.
I appreciate that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think flexibility is the most important thing when dealing with global teams in different time zones. The first thing you need to realize is that sometimes somebody may not have slept yet. That's one of the most important things because you're dealing with 12-hour, 14-hour time zone differences. So the first thing you need to know is that you're dealing with a human at the end of the day. You're dealing with a human, it's not a machine. They have feelings, you know, they have things that may have gone wrong during the day. Allow them the grace that they need because we all need a lot of that these days. Allow them the grace that they need to do what they have to do. You know, work with them because you're all on the same team and that's one of the things that you need to remember. We're all here to do the same thing. We're all trying to achieve the same thing. So let's see how we can get it done. If it is that you have a lot of things going on today, then maybe I pull some of the weights or we work in a different way where, okay, you can pull some of the weights today or figure it out. But humans first, which we tend to forget, definitely humans first. Know that everybody has their struggles and their good days and their bad days and their very, very bad days. So work with them because you are a team at the end of the day. So that's an important thing.
The saying, you know, they say first impressions are lasting, but sometimes you need to give people a second and third chance.
Yes, they do.
Because you really don't know mentally what that person is going through.
Yeah.
And similarly, you expect other people to think the same way, right?
Yeah.
So if Tasha comes in the morning and bores me up, I say, oh
Yeah.
God, something happened, boy, she ain't doing too well. But you know, you don't get angry and you don't hold it with you. You know what I mean? You don't do those things. So yeah, that's a learning experience as well. Eh? It's a taught human behavior, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Internet, Tasha?
Yeah, I want to agree with Engineer Tara. I think my leadership style situational, transformative, meaning I adopt the leadership style that I need to adopt for the situation. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. There are times where I have to be harsh. I have to be kind of dictate a Trump style leadership, if you want to call it. There are times I'm mentoring, coaching. There are times, so it depends on the situation. But it doesn't matter what type I would employ at the time. I think at the end of the day, what nobody could say is that I was being unfair. It's something that I hold dear to me, that when I'm working with a group, I will always be fair to every team member. There's nothing that you cannot come and tell me. There's no criticism that I can't take. Actually, I love criticism. One of the types of meeting I hate the most is to sit down in a room and everybody agrees with me. I absolutely hate that. I enjoy when people oppose me or say, no, that's not it, or I think it's this way, or whatever. And then we get into this back and forth, because what I've realized, when you do that, sometimes the solution is not what I said or what you said, but a combination of both, or not at all. So I love being in a room where people are free to disagree, to criticize. And I established something called a war room in some of my projects. So when we meet together, we say whatever we have to say. We say it loud. If you want to, I remember one of my bosses saying to me, if you want to get up on the table and quarrel with me, do just that. And the point he was making is that when we're in that room, we do and say what we have to say. When we step out in front of the client, we step out as one. And that is a principle that I've taken with me throughout my career.
You know what she reminds me of? A good leader is also a good follower. Exactly. You must be able, it's like a good speaker, you must be a good listener as well. So it works both ways. Any comments?
Yes, so it's really and truly just the sentiments. It's based on the situation at hand. You have different personalities to deal with. You have the more aggressive type employees, you have the more passive. And you really need to kind of, be quick on the draw to think, okay, what type of leadership style do I take for the situation or for this team? And there are some of them in my team at the moment that, I could put them on the forefront. I could allow them to, take a step forward, because they have shown and demonstrated things where, hey, I can take a step back. And one of the things that I've learned actually from my mentor who I spoke about previously, he said, the reason why I hired you is for you to make me look good. And really and truly,
I like that.
Yeah, you get in the opportunity. And that's what I think of my staff, and even what, my superior thinks of me. They want you to make them look good, and nothing is wrong with that. It means that you have the confidence and strength and capacity within your team to be able to make your department and yourself look well. And nothing absolutely, it means that you would have been building and forming the blocks to have a fruitful team.
Excellent.
So,
I like that. And
President
ability.
President, I just want to say one more thing.
Yes.
We are not going to live forever. And what we need to realize is that training somebody, empowering them to follow in our footsteps, it's not going to take away from us or
Correct.
who we are. And we have to be willing to do that. There are generations coming up after us, and we have to empower them to continue on. It doesn't make us any less of a person when we teach, when we empower,
Makes you a
when
greater
we
person,
it
actually.
makes you a better
Yeah.
person, and you leave behind a legacy.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about.
Yes, I totally agree with that statement. I think that will redound even with the audience. Eh? All right, let me move on. I need to move on a little bit quickly. Sorry about that. What emerging trends in engineering should young professionals be aware of? Anyone would like to advise?
Let's start with the younger.
I think it's a team question. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the emerging trends are what the young professionals know already, which is AI. And I think it's up to the seniors and the older ones to kind of adapt back to that, because AI, has done a lot, and it's continuing to do a lot for the engineering sector. And I think that is definitely something that, you always say that you learn from your elders, or you learn from those higher or have more experience than you. But now, the younger generation and those who are so much more technologically inclined, if we don't adapt, we become obsolete.
That's
you know,
quite correct.
if you think about it like that, I definitely think that AI is a trend
Emerging
and
trend.
that's the way forward, within the limits, of course.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I think being able to adapt, that's one of the things. It doesn't matter if you're old or if you're young, being able to adapt and understand flexibility is very important, because if you don't adapt, you will become obsolete. It doesn't matter, AI or no AI. Just and I think COVID actually taught or tried to teach us that, tried to teach us, be flexible, be willing to adapt, don't just stay and say, okay, this is how it's been done for the past 10 years. I'm going to continue doing that.
So the real question is how you reach out to people like that and get them to be flexible in their thinking,
Oh,
huh?
boy.
Because
Yeah.
we have quite a lot of people like
We
that.
do. We
Yeah,
definitely
that's
do.
excellent advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Can I move on?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. Sure. All right. How do you see? Ooh, this is a nice one. How do you see the role of women evolving in the engineering industry over the next decade? Mind you, we have millennials, we have XYZ, we have AB, we have all kinds of generations coming up here. How do you see the role of women evolving in the engineering industry? So remember those stats that I started off with? They were pretty grim, right? What 166 out of 10, 26 engineers and so? I mean, that's pretty grim, eh? And then you have women leaving after 5, then women leaving after 10. And then we praise the women who've hit the glass ceiling, who've broken the glass ceiling. It's amazing. So let me hear your thoughts.
Oh boy. So I think a lot of what I would love to see is balance.
Balance.
I would love to see balance. But in any industry that you go into, you will always have, and it's statistics at the end of the day. You're always going to have more, you're going to have less, you're going to have that, 75% to 25%. And that could go in either direction, male or female. So I would like to see more balance and flexibility, because I think that women are very, very diverse in what they bring to the table. And if you look at what's going on in the US right now, we have a major skills gap. We have a major, I think they're calling it the silver wave or something like that, where a lot of people are retiring and we're losing a lot of the workforce. Whereas you have all of the women available, ready to be upskilled, and we're not utilizing that. We can't fill the gaps. We have to just encourage more women, get them involved, get them trained, because if they could run and manage a home and handle everything in it, I am sure they could do a lot more out in the industry.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So it seems like the world is not ready for female leaders yet, right?
Yeah.
I'm referring to the past elections that just came and went. So that's a very interesting point, because I believe if you had more women in leadership positions, you really wouldn't have any wars, because you women will pull themselves around a table and sort out things, But maybe not. Yeah. Engineer Tasha, you answered already? The trends, the role of women evolving in the next decade.
I see, the trends, women, it will continue to increase. More women will get into the STEM field. But what we also have to realize is that we are not equal. We are not the same. I'm not the same as a man, and I need special solutions. I should be able to comfortably have a family, have a child, without feeling that I need to quit my career. So if companies need to start thinking out of the box, having a daycare center downstairs, doing, just different creative ways of bridging the gap and not really equality, but equity. And we need different solutions, and we have to recognize that it's okay to be different. We will never be men will never be women. All things being equal, of course. And we just need sometimes different solutions for us to kind of progress to the higher levels. And I think all around the world, companies are recognizing that. There's a group that is called STEMETS in the UK. And I mean, they advocate for more women in STEM, etc. And they look at what are the solutions we can put in place to allow women to continue to be in the STEM field. Because when you look at access, we have the access, at least in certain parts of the world, where there are as many women doing engineering or at the lower levels. But when you keep going to the higher levels, you find there is disproportionate men and women, and we have to recognize that diversity fosters creativity, it fosters innovation. So we need diversity, not just in STEM, but in every industry. And
I like her answer because she's just answered. If you had to change one thing about your industry, what would it be? And she's just answered that question as well. So we'll do 2 more questions, then we go for a short break, right? All right. So where was I? What advice would you give to women entering traditionally male-dominated sectors of engineering? Is that a hard question?
No, because we all did it.
Exactly. You know.
Yes.
I would say just know who you are and what you want, and be confident about it. I think that is, and it goes back to the point of not being confident and assertive. But once you know who you are and what you want, and you go after it, that solves, I think, a lot of the problems.
And the most important question for the night, dear ladies, what benefits have you seen from joining APET as a female engineer? So I'm going to go around the circle for this one, because I want the audience to know that there are benefits to joining APET, you see? All right, let me start with you, Engineer Tara.
Well, I'll start by saying I'm meeting you lovely ladies.
You're welcome.
Actually, it's a way of giving back for me. I've been in engineering. I think it's a way that I will take a more active role to help the younger professionals, both male and female, and to help bridge whatever gaps that exists.
Right, so those are the benefits for you. Yes.
Yeah.
Engineer Sanya.
I think APETS has a reach that will allow more awareness for the industry. And I think that's what it's really about, bringing more awareness to female engineers, to male engineers, to engineering in, as a whole, just bringing more awareness to that. So I think by joining APETS, you actually, you give back to the society, yes, but you also take a pledge to say, I am part of the association and I can help Trinidad and Tobago.
I appreciate that. That's nation building thinking. Yeah.
Nation-building.
Engineer Tasha.
I wouldn't say there was any particular benefit as a female, but a benefit in general. And it gave me the opportunity to serve the engineering fraternity and to give back to the country in whatever little way that I could. And to become a member of a professional body means that I'm holding myself accountable to a certain standard and code and ethics. And when I serve people, when I give my service, I am saying that I am holding myself to that. And that's what it really, really means to me, what I represent as a professional.
Excellent. That is also nationalistic. I know Mikey from St. Lucia. We appreciate that. Engineer Melissa?
Yeah, hi. So, I think APETS is the forum and the way to go. Usually when you work in an organization, you're by yourself or you're just with this, confined group of engineers, and that's all you know. That's all the information is being shared amongst. Yeah. But when you join an association like APET, it's for knowledge sharing, it's for continuity, it's for mentoring, it's to have mentees, so it's more of you gaining the knowledge from all those associated with APET, as well as you contributing back into the organization to be able to help those that are younger than us. And by extension, as Sanya said, it's our contribution within our profession to give back to our country, so, and we owe it. It's our obligation to give back to our country. We work here, we put our practices out here, and it's our duty to to give back in that sense.
So I like this. So this will all go well for the mentorship program that we plan to embark upon. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. All right. So to our viewing audience, we are going to a 10-minute break at this point in time. So you join us back here in about 10 minutes. And to the audience who is before me, I would encourage you to go outside. We do have an entrepreneur outside. Her name is Khalifa McAllister, and she has some presentations there. So part of this was really to encourage young, not young only, but female entrepreneurs in the room so that we encourage everyone else. And we do have some books on STEM for sale by our very own editor, Engineer Tanya Matura. So please have a view, take a look at it. And we have some Who's Who magazine to give out. Yeah. So thank you. So we'll see you in 10 minutes. For bearing with us. The 10-minute break was well needed. We got a little stretch legs and so forth. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move straight into the question and answer session. And we do have one online question so far. So we will, but before we go to the online question, let me engage my audience here. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to start off the question and answer session, please? Just raise your hands and Mike will come to you.
Default to the
I think
online.
my audience, I'm kind of shy. Online people, my audience is shy. Do you believe this? This is not good. All right, so, well, then I have no choice. While my in-person audience is getting their questions ready, we'll go to the online question. And this question is from Ms. Annalise Nanter, who I think is a geotechnical engineer. Annalise, thank you so very much for taking the time to view and to spend your evening with us. So ladies, the question to the panel is, have you found that you had to suppress
That's a
your
good question.
femininity in terms of clothing, hair, makeup, etc., to be taken seriously in a male-dominated field? Interesting question, eh? That's an excellent question to start off the panel with.
I think I will start.
Yeah, sure.
My attire is usually, skirts, jackets, heels. And being a lone female, most of my career, functioning in the capacity of engineering, my clothes was often a topic of conversation. I've learned to ignore and continue, but I think that was a topic of conversation. So, what I used to do is used to ask my husband, is like, in fact, he dressed me to come here. Is this outfit, is it going to be adequate, I get this feedback to take into account, the reactions to my clothes at times. So the answer is yes, my clothes, they have been a point of discussion in boardrooms and stuff. I would be presenting and I would hear something about my skirt or my heels. I would ignore it and I would continue.
So the answer to that question from Engineer Tara is yes.
Yes.
This is very interesting. Engineer Sanya.
Oh yes, oh yeah, definitely yes. It will always be a topic of discussion, but I think one of the things that we struggle with as women in engineering is that we try to fit in with the guys, and that's where we lose our authenticity. And I think that's very, very important, because there's a reason that we are female, and there's a reason that we are in that position to add value. And by suppressing our femininity or trying to be one of the guys, we are taking away the value that we are bringing to the organization. So I would say go hard on the makeup and the pretty and the colorful clothes because I usually do that. And yes, I will get the questions about, I'm sorry, are you here to make the coffee? And I'm like, I don't know how to make coffee to save my life, so you should not drink it if I do make it. But even though you may get pulled aside because you have a brighter color clothing or more makeup or something like that, that's the value that you are adding. That's the uniqueness that you bring to the table, and you should not suppress that because that is part of you, because you're going to be challenging your authenticity, and that's an issue that women face globally, especially in engineering, and they start changing so much because they don't want to stand out. They don't want to get pulled up for being, more female, or, they want to be part of the group. They want to be accepted by the guys. And that's something you should not have to change yourself or not wear what you want to wear within reason, just because you want to be part of the group. You are who you are, and that's who you bring to the table, and you better bring your whole self. Don't hold back on it. That's just my answer.
Engineer Tasha.
To a certain point, yes, I at times you've had to suppress it, but I'm not actually sure whether it is because of my femininity. I think depending on where you are in the industry, if you're out in the field, you have to dress a certain way. You have to be cognizant of where you are and dress the part. If I'm going out in the field, I have my boots, I have my jeans. I'm like the boys, but if I'm going to a boardroom meeting or I know I'm indoors, I'm very feminine. I never felt threatened or had to tone it down. But I have been more conservative in the way I dress, knowing that how I dress can affect the people around me. But that's not really because I'm female, but just because of my beliefs.
I appreciate that. Engineer Melissa.
Hi. So please don't let this outfit fool you. Really and truly, there was a mandate for over a decade. All I wore was coveralls, and that was just the realm of things. For you to even enter the gate, you have to be dressed in coveralls. You're going straight on the plant. But over time, and as more female engineers come to the organization, not in engineering alone, but the other sectors as well, planning, inspection, and whatever, they started to dress it up a bit. They started to put on a little makeup. They started to have their individuality while still, owning their coveralls. So really and truly, I didn't have the opportunity to say, choose your work attire per se, because that was kind of chosen for you. But I would have, just like she said, I would have chose to dress conservatively as my choice, not really intimidated by anybody else. And I think that you have to own who you are and your individuality and what your style is. And if it's, a jacket and tie, or a shirt and pants, or a skirt, or a nice dress, then you have to own that. As long as, like she said, within reason, of course.
Yeah.
I think you need to own individuality. You need to, you need to stand out, not only in what you have up here, but how you present yourself as well. Yeah, and I think that speaks volumes.
So in my case, coveralls were the order of the day. And that's, it's normal, natural. I have no problem with my coveralls. I noticed some other females in the organization, they took their coveralls, tapered them, and so forth. I am not interested in that. I put on coveralls for work, and it's for work, right? No problem. So when they see me outside, maybe a dinner social setting or so, they're like, "What, Carla? You clean up real nice, girl." Oh God, that was the joke of the day. And that is how it works with me, But in terms of femininity and in the office and so, it's not really, I haven't done really anything I didn't have to dumb down.
Yeah.
I did notice though, when I dress in a particular way and I'm dealing with statutory bodies, I get totally different responses. So that's why I'm thinking, wow, it pays to be a female sometimes, So that's just my experience. So thank you for that question, Annalise Nanton. We do appreciate it. Please feel free to send more. We're looking out for more questions from the audience. And my in-person audience now, I know past President Trevor has a question. I know my dear Rotarian Nisha has a question. So let's start with past President Trevor. Could you please carry the mic to him? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And ladies, fantastic work so far this evening. Really very informative and very impressive. Quick question, because I think you all went to University of West Indies. Am I correct?
We did.
Yes.
Yes.
So tell me about your experience as students. Were you finding any sort of gender-based discrimination or bias against you as female students at the University of the West Indies in the faculty when you were passing through? And if so, do you know if that has changed? Just a two-point question. Okay. All right, I'll just wait for the answer.
Thank you.
Oh, who
Ladies?
wants to go first on that one? I will jump in. I will jump in first. Yes, you will always have that issue, and it goes both ways, not necessarily just with your lecturers, but also with your classmates, because there are some classmates, male classmates, that will tell you straight off that you cannot work with them because you're female, and you will get that discrimination. Not all of them are like that. You will also have some male lecturers that will not listen to your answer or will not entertain the fact that you have a question. They would prefer to deal with the male students. And that is where we need the male allies. And I will call upon your male allies to help you with that, because you're all in the same class together, having that support is very important. And allowing your male colleagues to know what's happening, that can be a source of support for you in that time of need, because you may have the same question that they have and they will get it answered. So I think it's very critical to have that male allyship at the university level, just because we're talking about that, but I think throughout your career as well. So that's just my answer on that. I don't know if it's changed, I can't tell.
I will jump in now. My experience has been just the opposite
Okay.
of yours. I've had not one incident where I felt uncomfortable or being discriminated against because of my gender. And in fact, the students, they came to my assistance on many occasions, and I've had the support of the lecturers. So I think for me it was quite a good experience.
Interesting. Engineer Tasha?
For me as well, and maybe probably because of how I grew up in the field, I probably never noticed it if there was, because I was very assertive at that time. Just imagine a 14-year-old in a class full of boys doing technical drawing. So I was kind of used to being in an environment where they were only, so I learned to speak up. I learned to be loud. I learned to be, I sat in front, I'm the person who sat in front of the class and answered every question. And I was the same way at doing my undergrad at UWI. I sat in front of the class, I made sure I did all the tutorials, I asked every question, and so I never felt intimidated. Particularly in the civil engineering department, the lecturers are very supportive generally, male or female. I mean, we have one of our past lecturers sitting in the audience here, and I did my SIP, Special Investigative Project, with him, and it was on women in engineering, and he encouraged me to do it. So I can't say that I did at that point. What I experienced came after.
I just want to comment, my background is somewhat similar to hers in terms of growing up in a male-dominated environment. So, yes, some things we wouldn't have, we were accustomed dealing with guys. I mean, you have to handle them, or you just ignored certain things.
You just don't hear some things. And you know, it's
Yeah.
like you learn to just ignore certain things because men
Because you're one of
sometimes
the
will
guys.
always be men. They
Interesting,
make
yeah.
comments,
I
they
would
say
think one of the
things.
guys that you,
Yeah.
I think you got, you get to know how guy thinks, how they think.
How they are.
And, you know, and you basically anticipate it and you can manage it.
Interesting. Engineer Melissa?
Yes, so I've never really had any negative experience there. Usually, when I did enroll and we started, it was like a 25% female, 75% male in mechanical and industrial engineering. You know, that first year is a lot of correlation of subjects and courses. And our group studies, you know, underneath the engineering building would be a mix of male and female. And, you know, the good thing about our little group that we had was that, you know, persons did not move as though the university was giving out 1A. You know, there was sharing of information, we studied together, we did past papers together, and we all came out in the end, you know. So definitely, I am not sure if it changed or what, but my experience with, you know, both male and female students and even teachers were fantastic.
Yeah, mine is more of the same. I also passed through MET, so I did mechanical engineering technician when it was San Fernando Technical Institute. And there was never any different experience for me. So it was there, I was just part of the gang, we just did what we had to do, studied together, everything, didn't matter. Even in UE, yeah, I didn't really feel that, yeah, so Engineer Sanya, we do apologize. That wasn't great. So, Past President Trevor, I hope you've answered the question. Do we have another question from the audience? Please feel free to raise your hands, yes? The mic will come to you. You can say your name as well, so it'll be because we're live streaming. No problem.
Yeah. Good evening, Nisha, Harry here. Good evening, everyone, and I want to say congratulations on an excellent panel discussion. I just have a little call based on your trajectory, life history, and of course your sheer honest experiences as women in the field of engineering. I applaud you greatly. And the discussion on your experience is so great and rich that I hope you would do a phenomenological, qualitative study on this, an article, to be published, because it would be great contribution to knowledge that can positively impact on practice and policy. So just one question based on this. What inclusive policies do you think are deemed critical at this juncture in your context, given your experiences in engineering? Thank you.
You have to repeat that one.
I think I need to make her repeat that question,
Yeah,
yes?
can
Repeat that
you
question, please, sorry.
Thanks. What inclusive policies do you think are deemed critical at this juncture in your context, given your experiences in engineering?
Inclusive policies, like how we have in Rotary, we have DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah, inclusive policies. Sani, you can speak to that off the bat.
Yes, I just want to jump in there so quickly.
Yeah.
There are so many inclusive policies that we can start with. And the first thing is not just recognizing women, but recognizing disabilities as well. Because if you look at the statistics for just overall with STEM, a lot of disabilities, we have not had a change in the amount of people with disabilities entering the STEM industry for the past 10 years. It's still 1%, believe it or not, globally. And we need to start being more inclusive and start understanding that even people that with disabilities can still perform. STEM is a very wide, very, very wide area that a lot of people, we need a lot of help in that area because we could change the world. We are literally changing the world with STEM. So the policies that we need to put in place is just, first of all, awareness. It always begins with awareness. Understanding that different people could bring different things to the table and they could solve the problems that we have. So that's why you need the diversity. Bringing the policies in place is just getting the regulatory stuff in place to get more people involved. And again, it starts with awareness and just getting people, ready for that. So I hope that answered some of your question. But I know my panelists will cover what I didn't.
Ladies, anything to add?
Yeah, definitely. While we are thriving to have more women in the industry, we can't forget those that are, differently abled. And, we have some smart individuals and they are just physically, they're immobile.
Yeah.
So where are the opportunities for them?
Yeah.
While they have great minds and they could play a great role in whichever sector, not only engineering alone, we need to harness that, and especially much more so in Trinidad.
Yes.
We don't see it. We don't see it. We barely see it in our public spaces where we have amenities for them. So I think it's something to definitely be thought of, and it starts with a regulation, being passed by cabinet, policies within your workspace, things that you can incorporate in self to ensure that these people get an equal opportunity just like the rest of us.
Interesting.
I think one of the things we also need to look at is having specific programs within our companies, within our space that encourage inclusivity. Simple things like before, the whole thing of maternity used to be the burden of a woman, but there are companies who now implementing men could take maternity leave, just like women. And we have to recognize that if we want women to become leaders, that we have to have programs that cater for both sexes and see it as more of a collaborative effort. I've heard of companies having playrooms downstairs, having drivers to pick up children after work, simple little things like that could allow both families to grow and not be jeopardized by, because so now you no longer have to say, I need when I was developing my career, I thought I had to have one or the other. I thought I could, or either I do this career and forget about a family. I couldn't have both. But now I'm realizing you can, if you have the right policies in place that supports growth of families and realizing that families are the core and strength of our society. So even within our companies, if we try to foster that, then it balloons into everything else.
I appreciate that. And one of the points you raised there is that you prepare women for leadership roles and so forth, right? What's the counter to that? How do you prepare the men to accept that you have women in leadership roles? That's the other thing. Not saying anything bad. It's just been part of my experience, as I live and grow. Yes. All right. So I hope we've answered most of the questions. Thank you very much. We do have 2 online questions, but we'll take another question from our in-person audience. Yes? I see 2 hands going up there. That's excellent. Sorry, ladies first. Engineer Asta. Sorry about that.
Hi, good night.
Good evening.
My name is Satira Maharaj, and let me introduce myself. I'm a PhD candidate in industrial engineering right now, and I'm specifically looking at gender in the field of engineering in Trinidad and Tobago, so thank you very much for this panel discussion. One of the things that I'm thinking about for my work is the way that ergonomics interacts with gender. Some things are very simple. For example, coveralls and the functionality of coveralls for females, right? Things like something as simple as using the bathroom. But then there are the fit of goggles, the design of ladders, the design of tools to sometimes use a lot of upper body strength, right? Harnesses. At one point I was less than 120 pounds, but the company only stocked harnesses that would work for folks above 120 pounds. So then you become excluded when corporate entities cater for the norm. Things like gloves, something as simple as that, right? And you cannot do your work as safely as you would like, and sometimes become excluded. So I was wondering if the panel could speak to that issue, the interaction of ergonomics, safety, gender. Definitely interested in hearing your thoughts.
I could jump in. One of the experiences I had very early, we have to wear these very heavy boots on site. And I absolutely hated that. They were way too heavy. My feet suffered a lot. Up to today, I have actually, issues with the soles of my feet, and I think it started from there. One of the things that I asked for when I kind of went up in one of the companies that I ended up working for was that I wanted special shoes. I wanted shoes especially for women, and it took a bit of work, and I had the safety officer in the company investigate and find a shoe that was designed lighter. So they were boots, they were steel toe, but they were lighter and specifically for women. Yes.
Yeah, in my case, with that aspect, with ergonomics and so forth, there was never really, okay, so the coveralls, yes, initially when you wear one piece, they have a zip that the men could use, right? The women can't really use it.
Correct.
So you have to take down everything when you go to the washroom. And that's just the way it is. But then the company evolved into two-piece coveralls. Same thing with the boots. The boots were not a problem. I did have to take a meal when I started because I had to put in a requisition for a female boots. But they were always, that was always there. So you could get what you needed. Of course, safety started to give trouble, I think, but that's okay. We dealt with them. So in terms of like ergonomics like that, I guess it's an evolution for companies. And I think the smaller the company and the more, like, okay, let's say a company, maybe a civil company may have a lot more males and females in there. They would just have to adjust a bit. Because having males, you could know you're ordering, look, 3 pairs of coveralls, medium, and then 2 large, and so forth. But when you have females coming into the fray now, just take a little more attention. So I don't think that it's disadvantages or advantages. It's just an approach that the company would take. But in my case, of course, the hard hats, my head's so small, I always had problems with falling off. But that was basically it, you know. So we were allowed for in the company policy and so forth. Yeah? We have a question from, I hope we answered that question, Engineer Zidiro. Yeah, we have a question from Engineer Harris, and then I will take 2 questions online. Yes?
Okay, good night, everyone. This is really an enlightening discussion. My question is, you're speaking to the future generation also here. If you had one word to express your journey thus far, what would it be from each of you? One word to encapsulate your journey.
You had to ask a hard question, boy. Oh, Lord. One word. All right, let me start off on that end.
All right. So the word that comes to me is worthwhile. My journey, it was worth it. It was worth the struggle. It was worth the breaking down barriers, the challenges, everything I had to, because, you know, the success and where I am now, it's so much sweeter. So it's really, I would say, worthwhile.
That's a nice one.
You know, the first word that came to mind when you asked that question is that it was hard. I'm not gonna sit there and lie. It was challenging. It was rough. But like she said, I would do it all over again. It was well worth it. It is well worth it.
It usually is. I would say interesting and not yet over, because we still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of things to get done, and the only way we could do it is by working together. So I'm going to say interesting for now.
For me, the first word that came to my mind was adventure. For me, it was an adventure. The different things I was able to do, different places I was able to go, the things I was able to achieve, and the things I'm still doing. And I treat it as such too. I enjoy doing it too. Yes, there are challenges, but it is well worth it. Now, in the past, and it will continue.
In the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when you asked that question, Engineer asked her, nothing came to mind, you know, I was just quite competent and I'm quite content. But thinking about it now, the word that does come to mind, and it might sound a little bit strange, is fantastic. And I'll tell you why. I've been through so many experiences in my young life so far. I've gone through so many, dealt with so many different managers, engineers, persons, all sorts of things. Because I'm one of the engineers, I was the only pipeline engineer on the 56-inch line, the only 56-inch line in the Western Hemisphere. And you learn so much just by being there and observing. It's very, very interesting. So I think so far, and the journey now start, right? We're still continuing. So the work would be fantastic for me. Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Right. So let me go to two online questions. Now this one is an interesting one for you lovely ladies who happen to be married and so forth. Are your spouses intimidated by your level of education, ability, and status? Get silence in the room, audience. Oh boy, should I get worried? Any husbands viewing this?
I will jump in. I would say if they are, or if he is, he doesn't show it.
That's a great answer. I'm sure he's looking at us right now. Anyone else?
Let me be honest. Well, I'm not married and I have no children. And the truth is, I think a lot of the time, yes, my relationships were affected by my level of education and where I was, especially if you have a disparity. If they are at the same level or higher than you, it's okay. Once you are higher than them, then there are issues. And these relationships don't last very long, and don't regret them.
So she touched on that. So the relationship thing is a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, that question came from a gentleman by the name of Dexter Tweets. The relationship thing is totally different. So I was taught that if you meet with somebody who is not at your educational or intellectual level, you'll have problems because of insecurity, right? It's not necessarily that. It's just people's personalities and how they handle things, how you handle things, you know, and so forth. So yeah, so really you meet different, let me just say you meet different men, different types of men, different men with different levels of thinking and so, and that is what will feed into that question, you know. So it depends on who you're dealing with. And I mean everybody, sometimes you women give trouble as well, so you know, it's just different. Yeah. All right, so we take another online question. As engineering leaders, this one is interesting. Do you feel that you are expected to either have more empathy than your male counterparts or feel the need to detach emotionally? That question's come from someone, speaker Lisa. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so I definitely think that there is an expectation that we need empathy among women. Now, you know, one of the things that you see in, you know, male CEOs and male leaders is that they mostly, and this is not to say anything bad, it's just a uniqueness and a characteristic. They lead mostly from the head. But the uniqueness of a woman in leadership and leading, they lead with the head and the heart. And that's where it lies. So I do think that we have an obligation to be a little bit more empathetic. I think it's within our nature as ladies, as wives, as mothers, as daughters. I think it's kind of within your nature now, notwithstanding that we have to have that aggressiveness at times, or we have to have that, you know, strictness at times. But I think it is expected, but it's based on the situation at hand. Definitely.
I like that answer. That's a politically correct answer. Engineer Tasha?
I did feel I was expected to be more emotional and was accused of called names when I was not emotional, because I tend to look at things sometimes very logically and straightforward.
Objectively.
And I'll give you an example. I had a boss who constantly asked me how I feel about this or how I feel about this situation. And I got annoyed at a point asking, I don't feel anything. Why should I feel anything? This is X and this is Y and it should be like, why are you constantly asking me how I feel about? Because they just kind of just expect you to be leading more with your emotions. And not. Yeah, but it doesn't happen in every case. I think our women have an innate ability to have more, we have more emotional intelligence and intuition. I think I would have said that before. And we should kind of utilize these skills to be able to make us into better leaders. Being empathetic and learning to listen to people, listen to what they're saying, listen to what they're not saying, and make us more capable at what we're doing.
I think
So-
that's one of the marks of a great leader. Yeah, where you can, you know how you to be empathetic, yeah, and you don't let people walk all over you, you know? Yeah. Any more comments? Or you're okay there? Go to the next question. All right. So the next question comes from Engineer Dexter Daniel. Engineer Dexter Daniel, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. What support is required to encourage greater participation of women in STEM? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I got it
Yes.
right.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I will just jump on that one because I think it takes a community and it takes support. It takes support from your male and your female colleagues because sometimes, and we discussed it before, you may not have as much support from your female colleagues. So it goes back to support, and not just support in the workplace, but support at home as well. Because you can have support at home that helps you to progress more into that field. So I think that part is very important.
So the charity begins at home, basically.
It
You need that
definitely does.
support.
So yes.
I appreciate that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, so definitely, just to echo our sentiments as well. I mean, you know, in relation to the last question too, I mean, the support to do my master's and progress in my career as well really did come from the support from my parents and my spouse. And, you know, to say he really and truly is not intimidated at all by me, you know, and it's a good thing because, I mean, he has confidence in himself. And I was a graduate engineer long after him, and he has recently graduated with his mechanical engineering degree as well. So we do have some interesting conversations. However, you know, it's really about that support. And, you know, I am here and I could be here because he's at home, you know, seeing my 2-year-old daughter, our 2-year-old daughter. So it's really and truly, you know, you really have to find that right person to support you. And once you have that, sky's the limit.
Would you
know,
believe I have
you really
somebody in the
need-
audience who had to wait for her husband to come home to come here? So he
Easy.
would look after the children. That's
Exactly, so it's a
excellent.
tag team,
Yeah,
it's a tag team.
It's excellent, yeah. Thanks for that. All right. I have one question from past President Valerie Kelsick online. Do I have any questions in person? Do you all want to ask any questions before I go
think
to
he
the
has
next
a
one?
question.
We have a question from Professor Sweet. Engineer Valerie, we're coming to your question.
Let me say that I feel proud for coming out of UE. I remember when we had 3 girls, I say girls, coming to do civil engineering. When I look at the girls, the female students tended to go more towards electrical or chemical. There are reasons why I suppose that choice. But I heard somebody on the platform making a statement about catering for physically challenged students. Over the years, we in UE have by and large failed in mobilizing the physically challenged students. And I remember working out the rough average, I can't remember now, what percentage of the society in our high school we were looking at are physically challenged. And they don't go to university or they don't go to do engineering. This is something we have to solve and we have not solved. The other institute in which I have been involved in, UTEC San Fernando, UTT, was able to graduate over a number of years about 4 or 5 blind students. And I found this admirable, but even that number is small.
Yes, that's excellent.
So I believe that is a challenge for us graduate engineers to possibly go to the high schools, particularly in the areas where we have what you call communities, disadvantaged communities, and go to assist in mobilizing and giving guest lectures and assistance. In other words, doing what can be done to change the situation in the physically challenged areas. There's one other thing. I heard somebody mention a question, or I thought it was going to lead down that road. In other words, what do we see the future of engineering and STEM in terms of development, including artificial intelligence, but what else? And last week I saw where Presentation College had a group of students who had come back from one of these international things that they do. You know, they have math group and you have that. And they were talking about computers and artificial intelligence building stuff. And I wondered how many schools in Barrackpore or some of these rural areas have a computer club.
That's an excellent question.
In other words, some of us are going forward, and by and large, a large number of us, meaning our children, and don't have a ghost of a chance. And I am looking back at what some of the things that APET tried over the years, that our responsibility is to interact and interface with the secondary schools. The feedstock from which we get students in here, both undergraduate and graduate. And the question is, what future do we see in terms of, we see China is doing this and young people, 15 years old, building that. What are we building in our high schools as engineers? What we as engineers are teaching, feeding back into our high schools? Do we see a challenge, in other words? Because the society seems to be left behind at the Faculty of Engineering and the new graduates. I must say that I'm very impressed with what I listened to here tonight. I feel the future is good. I am very impressed. When I listen to the qualifications, self-employed people building their own companies, and I think of where it was 30, 40 years ago when I was younger. You all have done wonders. I'm just asking for you to do a little more. Right? Go and talk to those high school students.
Yes.
When they hear you talk,
They are the future. We have recognized the need to go to the schools. So one of the things that we have been doing starting is to go to the secondary schools, to go to the primary schools, have talk. And it's surprising with all of the information and access to information that we now have, that there's still a lot of students and a lot of places who don't know. They don't know about engineering. They don't know what they can do. I mean, just recently, last month, we were at one of the colleges or one of the areas in the East. It was myself along with three other engineers from APET who went to talk to, I think it was an AV club or science club that they had there. Mm-hmm. And we continue to do these talks every year, and I would like to see APET increase that phenomenally, especially in the more impoverished areas and the areas where, you basically don't know what this world, what the access that you have, what you can accomplish, and whether you are impoverished or whoever you are, you can accomplish great things if you set your mind to it.
Yeah. So APET has always had a history of being invited to career days, and so we did make an effort to reach out to the Ministry of Education, so we didn't have a listing of the days, but I was advised that we can go to the principals as well. Yeah, so we are making efforts in that manner to reach out to the schools during their career days, or even when they have open days and they would like advice. So yes, so thank you, Professor Sweet, for that. So we are working on it. All right, let me just take the last two questions and we'll wrap up. Okay, so from past President Valerie, she says to rephrase the question on inclusive policies, Specifically, what actions have you taken in your communities or workspaces to challenge and effect societal change? That sounds like it's way above my head. Oh, Lord. What actions have you taken in your communities and in your workspace to challenge and effect societal change? That's a tough one.
Yeah, I think
It's-
yeah. Sorry, you go ahead.
That's a tough one, Engineer Kausik. I think we can only do things up to where we are capable. I mean, I can only do a little bit. So in my little space, what I have tried to do is, the key things in my life is to mentor people. From the time I left UE, every year I took on a student to mentor. Small thing, I mean, there are so many people who need help, etc., etc. But in my little way, I see it as giving back to the next generation. Things like faith is a big part of my life, so at some point I'll give maths lessons, and that's free of charge. So I give a lot back, and that helps my persons who have failed maths several times at CXC. I give them special attention, had clubs for them where I would leave work, get up from my desk, go spend 4 or 5 hours with them, sometimes my Saturdays, sometimes my Sundays, just to get them to pass. Now, I'm not affecting a very big group of people, but I feel satisfied that I'm affecting the lives of a few people.
The journey of 1,000 steps begin with the first one. Thank you very much for that. All right, so our last online question. This is from Engineer Stan West. And if any of you all know about Engineer Stan West, he was the bestest engineer, mechanical. He was heavily involved in APET in years gone by. And he, yes, Stan, I'm praising you. And he did a lot of mentoring for the engineers who passed through Texaco Petrotrin and so forth. So he really is a fantastic. It's nice to have you here with us this evening. Any comments on the socialization of girls versus boys and their inclination to technical careers and any suggested changes? Let me repeat that. Any comments on the socialization of girls versus boys and their inclination to technical careers and any suggested changes? I'm thinking he's thinking about bringing back the textbook areas and so forth. It sounds like that, eh?
Yeah.
What are you all thinking?
Let me just,
Socialization.
yeah, so, everyone has a part to play with regards to mentoring these youths, girls and boys inclusive. And I would have done, about a couple of years back, UT South would have asked me to do a presentation, and I was the only person on that panel, female that is, female engineer. And we did a presentation on the expectations. When you actually do get your degree or your technical diploma, what's waiting for you out there? So you're not going to come into an environment where you know nothing about. So a presentation was held with, various persons in mechanical, electrical, technical, construction, and whatnot. And the questions that they asked were not technical. The questions that they asked was, how do you thrive and how are you functioning, in that type of environment? Because they know that they're getting their academics done in the school, but how are they going to survive out there with regards to, inflation, job opportunities, and things like that. So definitely those sessions with the schools, like he said, is important. It's important to brief them on what is expected. And, so when they reach out there, they're not shocked, they're not startled. And it not only goes with just telling them about the sector, but we need to start to invite them for them to see, and I'm a person who learns by seeing as well, for them to see exactly what the sector is about. If we can visit them, have them visit the industries, have them see what the environment, the physical environment is like. I think that's where we need to step in to go into the right direction for these boys and girls.
I appreciate that. Let them know what a valve is and a flange and a bolt and nut.
Yeah, that's
Yes, I appreciate that. Anyone else, or is it all right?
I think he is correct that when we look back at the early days, yes, we were socialized differently. I mean, I remember the reaction of my grandmother when I said, "Oh, I'm going to do technical drawing and building technology," and she was shocked, and she was like, "Why not home economics or food and nutrition?" I mean, but it's not because she thought that I wasn't capable. She saw it as rough. Of how you going to cope with all these, around all of these men, and so we are socialized differently. Whether that exists now, I don't really know. I don't think so. I think it has changed dramatically since then. And so, yeah, it did play a part. And what we probably need to do now is to show women, show young children that you could be anything you want to be. You could be an aerospace engineer. You could be whatever you want to be. It depends on you. What are you willing to sacrifice to get to where you will?
To get to where you want to
Are
be.
you willing to spend all the night studying, have no parties, no drinking, no this? What are you willing to sacrifice to get to the top?
Yeah.
It's up to you.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right. We okay? Audience, it is now, any more comments? Are we all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
audience, it is now 9:38. I do apologize for keeping you way past your bedtime. I did say 7 to 9, I remember clearly. But so let me just give the closing remarks, and thank you all. So in closing our panel discussion, we hope that we have presented to you why APET offers such a great space for young engineers and older ones as well. Please don't be left out. APET keeps you on the edge of change and the evolving role of the engineer. APET offers leadership and mentorship, great opportunity, which is a great opportunity to learn, and networking opportunities. And you would very well know that networking is the key to career growth and doing business. Because many times the real magic of a session happens in the one-on-one moments afterwards, the one-on-one conversations afterwards, I have been getting feedback during the short break, and I did appreciate it. I just want to remind you all of some of the salient points coming from this panel. I have a few listed here. Don't limit yourself. Don't commit everything to memory, but know where to find the answers. We have to prove ourselves a little bit more. I'm so sorry to say that, as females. Have the confidence in yourself to do what you have to do. Have the confidence in who you are. Know your value and know your worth. Be able to adapt. We got a new term today. Well, it's new to me anyway, the silver wave. So somebody going to be Googling later. Very good. And the final thing I wrote here, which is point number 9, is know who you are and what you want. And I think that will resound with you. As you leave here, as you reach home safely tonight, those words will resound with you. So on closing, let me just do the thank you very quickly. We would like to thank firstly the University of Trinidad and Tobago for partnering with us in this, our first of 2 Women in Engineering panel discussions. I would like to think it was well received, and I would like to think that the audience did have a good time. You can correct me afterwards when we are off air, no problem at all. So I'll mention Professor Stephen Joseph, Miss Wendy Mohammed, and Miss Eastlyn, who really helped us out. We need to thank, we have 2 sponsors, Deocon Limited, special thanks to Mr. Deoraj Ganesh, and Safety Plus Limited, special thanks to Engineer Kavi Ramsumir. Thank you to the APET Executive Council for making this event possible, and to all of my members who are present here today. We have Engineer Tasha, who is on the panel. We have past President Trevor, who is in the audience. We have the Chair of the Civil Division, Engineer Jiwan. Well, he probably walked out, sorry. And we have our very own PRO, Engineer Jackie John, here with us. Did I miss anybody? No? All right. So thank you for making the time, taking the time to spend it with us this evening. And of course, we must give thanks. Even in her absence, she came, she set up, and she left. Our most wonderful office manager, Miss Annalisa Salik. Thank you to DJ Dale and SL Photo, Video, and Streaming Services for making this live stream possible. And to another young man by the name of Harishran. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you to the audience, because without you, there can be no successful panel. You can't have a discussion without an audience, right? Especially an interactive one, yes? So thank you for the level of people that I see in the audience, all of you, my distinguished guests, Professor Sweet, Dr. Harry, Rotarian Shelley, Engineer Astor, is it Dr. Satiro? Engineer Satiro. And not only that, I've had people coming to me during the break and expressing how interesting and this thing is. So here what? So those of you all who have more questions and so, when we finish, when we break, we'll go have a cup of tea together and continue the conversation, right? So I'm encouraging you. Oh yeah, so without you, without my viewing audience, without my in-person audience, this would not have been possible. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to listen and participate in our panel discussion. I hope I didn't forget anybody. Yeah? Please forgive me if I did. I did have two lady entrepreneurs. One prepared the cakes outside, spicy chocolate and carrot cake. And one has a presentation of the body creams, essential bodies, and she has some beautiful wines out there as well. So I want to thank them as well, because this was also a forum for women to, to really express themselves and to just show you what we can do. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good night, everyone.
Morning. Okay.